Part 87. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 865. Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Swish swish swish. Swish swish swish. As the first battle after returning, Wang Ling led the air defense team and spared no effort. All the air defense troops fired volleys, coupled with his own abnormal firepower. It actually formed a situation of fire suppression. Previously, Wang Ling had to run away when faced with more than 10 laser UFOs. Although his air defense power is not weak, he is only one person after all, and the laser UFO can suppress his firepower with its numerical advantage. But now that we have found the organization and used all the air defense forces, we actually suppressed those laser UFOs with firepower. More than 10 laser UFOs were trapped, and they tried to charge, but in the face of such a dense and powerful the firepower was unable to break through at all, and even its firepower was dispersed. Even an Apocalypse tank failed to explode, and they were all shot down halfway. The frequency of the explosions caused by the fall was simply exaggerated. Haha, good job. There are only more than 10 laser UFOs, how long do you want to chase me? After the air defense battle ended, the other infantrymen didn't find anything strange, but Wang Ling started shouting. After all, he had really had enough of this cowardice these days. Now that the situation was reversed and he had shot down all the laser UFOs, it was self-evident that he felt happy in his heart. Pa! 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 After all the laser UFOs landed, Lieutenant General Lei Jun slowly clapped his hands, came to the battle circle, and said with a smile, "Beautiful. Are you satisfied with the first battle after returning?" To his surprise, Wang Ling actually shook his head. "Don't be too early, the battle is not over yet. These laser UFOs are just the vanguard. After discovering my position, they will report it soon. There are more Yuri troops of all kinds coming. Hey, this is a regional army-wide manhunt. Did you escape from this kind of manhunt these days?" Lieutenant General Lei Jun immediately thought of Wang Ling's experience, his eyes widened, and he was quite unbelievable. And Wang Ling did not deny it. That's natural. Otherwise, just these dozen laser UFOs, although troublesome, would not force me into this situation. Before I met you, I could only keep running away. Occasionally when I stop to fight, I will be bitten by Yuri's troops, and they will surround me and play will battles. Hiss, it seems that I was too optimistic before. You suffered more during your escape than I imagined. The entire Mind Empire is going crazy to round up you, and it seems that they are determined to eradicate you. Got it? After Lieutenant General Lei Jun sighed, he said boldly, "However, you still escaped from a siege of this scale. You are worthy of being a hero of our coalition. Now that the hero has returned to the team, the siege and suppression plan of the Seoul Empire has gone bankrupt. No matter what the cost, the coalition forces will protect you." Wang Ling also smiled. "It's still the coalition style that I remember. With the coalition as my backing, what should I be afraid of? Isn't it just Yuri's troops? If they dare to encircle and suppress me, then you have to be prepared to be slaughtered. Ha ha ha, okay, let's do it vigorously." Faced with the threat of the psychic troops, Wang Ling and Lieutenant General Lei Jun almost hit it off. For Wang Ling, Lieutenant General Lei Jun was absolutely assured, and without hesitation, he handed over full command to Wang Ling. Wang Ling was not polite, and quickly withdrew the air defense troops and replaced them with ground troops, which were fully deployed in 4 directions. Even the armed helicopters were deployed in cannon form under his order, and were ready. As for the Seoul Empire, they have been rounding up Wang Ling these days. Although they have failed time and time again, they have also exercised their efficiency in rounding up. After obtaining the location information, before Wang Ling could complete the deployment, Getter tanks appeared in the distance. "Trace. Here we come, get into position quickly and prepare to fight." With the firepower of the coalition forces, Wang Ling no longer chose to escape, speeding up the deployment of the entire army, and he personally came to the defense line in this direction to participate in the deployment. There were only a dozen of these Getter tanks, and they were obviously just vanguards. However, they seemed to know that there were a large number of coalition troops around Wang Ling, and they did not rush to charge to their death. Instead, they stopped and gathered there to wait for the tornado tanks at the rear. And the wild orcs were also in position, and then they formed a wave of offensive and plundered wildly. Beat. Boom, boom, boom. Da-da-da-da-da. After these tanks and wild orcs entered the fire circle, Wang Ling gave an order, and the armed helicopters deployed immediately opened fire and bombarded. Wang Ling also started strafing. The two fire powers combined, and in an instant, the vanguard force was attacked head-on. Several tanks burst into flames, and the orcs died tragically. Buzz buzz. And just as they were trying their best to block the vanguard force, nearly 20 laser UFOs suddenly broke into them from another direction, coming in a menacing manner. Swish swish swish. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The coalition forces were not to be outdone. The Apocalypse tanks in the front launched missile bombardments, and the entire base's anti-aircraft tracked vehicles even quickly gathered in the rear and opened fire intensively. Under the powerful anti-aircraft firepower, these laser UFOs were also falling in large numbers. However, the laser UFOs were an air force after all and were very mobile. After the remaining laser UFOs focused their fire and blasted an Apocalypse tank, they stopped in a hurry and tried to bypass this defense line and attack where Wang Ling was. Area. However, the orders received by those anti-aircraft crawlers were for mobile defense, specifically targeting these laser UFOs. They bit them and refused to let go. Not only did they move with the laser UFOs, there were even some elite crawlers that rushed directly towards them. After leaving the defense line, they violently pursued these laser UFOs, continuously shooting them down along the way. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Where is Wang Ling? Kill. Come on. Before the laser UFO army could be completely wiped out, a large number of Yuri infantry troops gathered in the other direction, and there were even dozens of tanks of various types in the rear. The momentum was very fierce. Boom, boom, boom. Boom boom boom. However, the coalition forces are also very stubborn. No matter what the opponent's lineup is, they just attack directly. From a long distance, the armed helicopters fired cannons and bombarded Yuri's troops. The lethality of cannons to infantry was very significant, and infantrymen continued to fall under the bombardment. However, the number of Yuri's infantrymen in this attack was too much. They charged hard despite these losses, and soon they rushed into the fire circle of the coalition infantry. Fire! Da-da-da! Da-da-da! Boom boom boom! Following Makai's order, the infantry tanks at the defense line also violently counterattacked. Several SEALs among them were particularly arrogant. Rows of Yuri infantrymen almost fell down under the strafing fire. Choo choo choo! Choo choo choo! At this time, Yuri's new recruits also opened fire, including sneak attacks by virus snipers, and there were even tank troops approaching from the rear. The situation was somewhat dangerous. Swish! However, not long after the Yuri recruits opened fire, a nearly substantial mental shockwave suddenly appeared behind the coalition infantry group. It cleverly avoided all the coalition infantry and wreaked havoc on Yuri's troops. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 866. Swish. Oh. Oh ho. Boom. This shockwave was naturally Wang Ling's masterpiece. After observing the firepower of Yuri's troops in this direction, Wang Ling became a little anxious. After speeding up to deal with the enemy troops in his direction, he quickly rushed over for reinforcements. However, at this time, Yuri's troops were almost in front of them and opened fire to counterattack. Under the powerful firepower, people in the coalition troops were killed all the time, and even Rhino tanks and armed helicopters exploded from time to time. The situation was urgent. Before Wang Ling could reach the defense line, he directly released a powerful mental shock wave. He carefully controlled the direction and spread it here. He avoided all coalition forces and collided with Yuri's troops unscrupulously. Under such a shock, all the Yuri infantry that broke in within the scope of the shock wave exploded in an instant. Even the Get tanks that had lost their health during the battle also exploded one after another. However, the scope of the shock wave was very large. Just with a round of shock, a considerable area of Yuri's troops was cleared, and hundreds of infantry were killed. Hiss. Seeing this horrific scene, all the coalition infantrymen couldn't help but take a breath of air. Is this skill too exaggerated? After all, they have had a lot of combat experience with the Psychic Empire. Of course, they also know that psychic troops have shockwave capabilities. However, due to limitations on the battlefield, general psychic troops rarely have the opportunity to use shockwave skills, so they do not put this ability too much in the heart. But he didn't expect that Wang Ling would also learn the shockwave skill, and once he used it, it would have such a terrifying effect. That's the shockwave ability of the Soul Empire's soul troops, right? Why is it so terrifying when Wang Ling displays it? Not only the infantryman, but also Lieutenant General Lei Jun, who had been observing the battle situation, also saw the scene and was immediately frightened. However, after trembling, he began to gloat again. At first, I thought that the Soul Empire was chasing Wang Ling because they were unwilling to lose his top combat power. But now it seems that it is more than that. The controlled ones during this period, Wang Ling became even more powerful than before, and he also learned skills unique to the Soul Empire. With his current combat power, he may be a huge threat to the entire Soul Empire, even making Yuri on pins and needles, right? Haha, yes. You dare to control anyone, you deserve to lose your wife and lose your troops, you really deserve it. It is true that Wang Ling enhanced his mental strength and gained shockwaves and mind control abilities, but the pain of this process was not something ordinary people could bear. Lieutenant General Lei Jun did not see this process, and he didn't know if he would be so gloating if the collapse during the special training happened to him. Don't be stunned, the battle is not over yet. But after Wang Ling's shockwave was used, he didn't relax at all. When others were frightened, he had already arrived at the battle line. With a shout, all the frightened infantrymen were awakened. When they recovered and saw Wang Ling again, they felt in their hearts. There was a burst of excitement. But Wang Ling had no time to pay attention to their moods. After getting into position, he directly picked up his AK rifle and fired briefly to clear out the few surviving tanks in the shockwave area. Then he turned the muzzle of the gun and shot down all the tanks within the range. The virus sniper shot and killed, and the next step was to block the Yuri infantry and tanks that were charging in the distance. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Although it is not as good as an armed helicopter, Wang Ling's range is not much shorter. Other infantry are still out of reach, but Wang Ling has already opened up his firepower. His rate of fire is so fast that it is exaggerated. Because of the high frequency of fire, the muzzle of the gun seems to be on fire. He was able to knock down swarms of infantrymen with almost every round of firing. When he turned the muzzle of the gun rapidly, it was almost dazzling, as fast as a ghost. Wang Ling has long been accustomed to this kind of operation, but although he has been famous for a long time, this group of infantrymen is fighting side by side with him for the first time. Seeing this exaggerated shooting ability, everyone has their hair on end. A feeling of boom, 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 boom. The armored forces are not that complicated. Relying on their ultra-long range, Armed helicopters have been bombarding this group of Yuri troops without interruption. A large number of infantry and even tanks died tragically under the continuous bombardment. Swish. When the bombardment was intense, the next moment, a long purple magnetic light suddenly appeared in Yuri's troops, which attracted a deployed armed helicopter from a distance, causing it to slowly float in the air. Obviously, the magneto-electric tank mixed in the team took action. This type of tank cannot attack infantry, so it directly targets the armed helicopter, which is also a strong threat. Once it is attracted by it, the armed helicopter will definitely die. This is also an old trick of Yuri's troops. In the past, whether in games or in the Red Alert world, this magneto-electric tank caused a lot of trouble to the coalition forces, but Wang Ling's range could not reach them. But buzz. The elite combat soldiers were out of range, but Wang Ling had other means to keep the shooting state unchanged. While he was distracted, he projected a mental connection from a long distance and directly controlled the vehicle with his mind. Sneak attack magneto tank. That's right, his mind control ability has a maximum control distance that is even beyond the shooting range of elite combat soldiers. It is just right for the current situation. After being controlled, the magneto-electric tank immediately let go and put the armed helicopter down again. Instead, under Wang Ling's instructions, it turned the magneto-electric device and sucked up a mind control vehicle not far behind it. Sky. Buzz. Buzz. That's not all. Now that he had already taken action, Wang Ling simply came with a full set, and then cast 2 more mental power lines to forcibly control the 2 getter tanks and stay inside the army of Yuri's troops. Then they began to rebel and destroy, rolling and shooting at the same time, turning the originally aggressive Yuri troops into a mess. This, can you still do this? Oh my god. A group of infantrymen were startled again, while Makai was dumbfounded. Even Lieutenant General Lei Jun cursed, "This pervert. Isn't it?" The previous shockwave was terrifying enough, but Wang Ling could also control his mind, and he was more ruthless than ordinary psychic troops. He was able to control 3 enemy tanks in one breath from such a long distance. Is this something done by humans? Swish. A group of infantrymen, even their team leaders and commanders were startled, but Wang Ling had become accustomed to it. The magneto-electric tank under his control was also very tricky. He aimed the mind-controlled vehicle in mid-air at a vehicle stuck in the vehicle. The getter tank in the infantry group was thrown down. As a result, the getter tank was directly destroyed and the mind control vehicle also lost half of its health. Da-da-da. The other 2 getter tanks also rolled over the infantry group unscrupulously, as if provoking, "Hit me. Choo-choo-choo. Choo-choo-choo." Such provocation finally angered the group of infantrymen. The Yuri recruits who were charging around them immediately stopped and took the lead in focusing their fire to kill the 3 troublesome tanks before resuming the charge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 867. But, is this all? How can it be? The source of control is still alive, how could it end so cheaply? Buzz. 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 After the 3 controlled tanks exploded, Wang Ling immediately projected 3 more mental power lines to connect. 3 more Guangfeng tanks were damaged. Under the control of his mind, they directly rebelled and ran rampant among the infantry groups, rolling around randomly. Rolling, and at the same time shelling the tanks within the range, causing a scene of joy. Choo-choo-choo. Oh ho ho ho. The infantry group really couldn't stand this kind of torment. A group of Yuri recruits, together with some wild orcs, killed the 3 tanks in 3 strokes. Buzz. 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 However, Wang Ling then connected 3 more spiritual powers, this time directly to 3 infantrymen. He stayed in the team and stared at the person next to him before biting him. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. During this process, Wang Ling's strafing and gunship bombardments never stopped, which was very painful for Yuri's troops. Internal and external troubles, infantry tanks that rebelled from time to time, greatly slowed down the march, and powerful firepower hit them from the front. The number of the entire army dropped sharply at a speed visible to the naked eye. They barely broke into the fire circle of the coalition infantry, but their number was less than 1/5 of the original number. In addition to the conscripts, magnetic blast infantry, anti-aircraft infantry, apocalypse tanks, and rhino tanks that subsequently opened fire, this Yuri force it was even more impossible to parry, and the originally mighty charging army was all wasted here. Buzz buzz. The battle on this front is over, but in the direction of the other front, a group of armored troops appeared within the observation range, and even cooperated with the laser UFO, coming menacingly. When Wang Ling saw this, he didn't even have time to say hello to Ma Kai. He ignored the other excited coalition infantry and turned around to support him again. This group of Yuri armored troops, including all kinds of tanks and vehicles, totaled more than 30 vehicles, and there were more than 10 laser UFOs in the sky. Wang Ling had seen this kind of lineup more than once before when he was on the run, and he was chased away every time. But now, with the help of the coalition forces, he became stronger, and finally relied on powerful firepower to defeat him with a lot of firepower. All these armored forces were wiped out at a small cost. After this group of enemy troops were eliminated and they waited for a while, no Yuri troops were seen approaching for a while. At this point, the battle finally came to an end. For this reason, many infantrymen also breathed a sigh of relief. During the migration, it is inevitable that you will encounter enemy troops. A battle is inevitable, but it is quite rare to block such a large number of Yuri troops in a row. Tisk, tisk, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have known there would be so many Yuri troops nearby, Lieutenant General Lei Jun couldn't help but joke. Wang Ling put the rifle on his shoulder and spat, the Seoul Empire is not so diligent. Under normal circumstances, there are not so many troops here. They are determined to kill me. They are anxious, so they rush troops everywhere are searching on a large scale. Damn it, I've had enough these days. Ha ha ha, Lieutenant General Lei Jun laughed, look at your resentful appearance. Now, the Seoul Empire should be more aggrieved than you. They used so many troops to search and suppress in a large area, but in the end they still let you run away. Since once you return to the organization, the Seoul Empire will never touch you again. Yes, 101, if those bastards want to touch you again, we won't agree to it. You dare to touch our coalition heroes and rebel against them. If you want to kill you, get over us first. No 099 and Ma Kai also smacked their chests in assurance, and then a group of infantrymen also expressed their stance. The shouting in unison really touched the softness deep in Wang Ling's heart. While being moved, Wang Ling also promised, brothers, thank you very much. Now that I have returned, the Seoul Empire will not be able to survive for long. Feeling Wang Ling's confidence, Lieutenant General Lei Jun was also very pleased. He smiled and nodded, and then asked, what are your plans next? Having said this, Wang Ling's originally excited heart gradually calmed down. Although we have defeated the Seoul Empire's encirclement and suppression troops, I can't guarantee how many troops are still approaching here. It's not safe to stay here all the time. We need to evacuate first, go to a safe place and make plans again. Good. Anyway, we were going to migrate, so the route was not a big problem. After Lieutenant General Lei Jun agreed, he immediately started arranging it. Originally, all the infantry in the base were advancing on foot. According to their speed, it would take 3 or 4 days to reach the new battle zone. But now, the situation has changed. He simply ordered all the infantry to ride on anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, changed the direction of advance, and marched quickly. As for Wang Ling, because of his special status, Lieutenant General Lei Jun simply left him in the base car. During the migration, Lieutenant General Lei Jun even had some thoughts: Wang Ling, we belong to the coalition forces and fight wherever we go. You might as well stay at our base for now. It just so happens that we are also going to the Haiping Theater to participate in the war. General Luo was a habitual offender of this poaching practice. How could Wang Ling not understand their thoughts? Immediately, he responded with a dumbfounded look: "Thank you, General, for your kindness. As you said, there is fighting everywhere, so I miss my old friends even more. Their madness when I was first controlled, it has always been imprinted in my mind and I really want to see them as soon as possible." Well, everyone has their own ambitions, so we can't force it. Lieutenant General Lei Jun couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Wang Ling got rid of the control of the Mind Empire and bumped into General Lei Jun's base. It was too sudden, and he was attacked by the enemy before he could finish his words. He finally had some free time during the migration, but Lieutenant General Lei Jun couldn't poach him, and he was embarrassed for a moment. After that, he quickly contacted the headquarters via radio and reported the incident. After all, Wang Ling's return is not a small matter, it can even cause a sensation in the entire coalition forces. Naturally, such a major event must be reported to the commander as soon as possible. Wang Ling was not idle either. After officially returning to the coalition forces, his radio returned to normal. When Lieutenant General Lei Jun reported, Wang Ling also found the frequency band of General Li Weiqi's command post and successfully connected. "General, long time no see, how are you doing?" "You are? Why does this voice sound so familiar? Is it Wang Ling?" On the other end of the radio, General Li Weiqi didn't know that it was Wang Ling who sent the radio, but after a few months, he still recognized Wang Ling's voice, but he couldn't believe it yet. Not only him, but the voices of Zhao Pingwang and Rovsky came out on the radio. "Wang Ling? No way, General, did you hear that correctly? I didn't hear clearly just now, and I felt a bit like Wang Ling. But how is this possible? Wasn't Wang Ling hidden by the Empire of Mind?" Listening to this familiar voice, Wang Ling felt warm in his heart, and couldn't help but smile. "General, Brother Zhao, look away. It's me, Wang Ling. I'm back." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 868. It's really Wang Ling, and the frequency band is indeed his. And this tone, this voice, there is no one else except that pervert. Really? Ha 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 ha, great. Wang Ling, you're finally back. Do you know how worried we are about you and how much we miss you? After confirming Wang Ling's identity, the three people on the radio ignored their image and shouted, sounding extremely excited. Wang Ling, as the protagonist, could not interrupt for a while. However, Wang Ling understood their feelings very well. After all, he really missed their old friends and comrades now, so he didn't feel too embarrassed at all. After the three generals, General Li Weiqi, were excited for a while, General Li Weiqi asked, "Wang Ling, what's going on? Are you out of control? Where are you now?" It was finally his turn to speak. Wang Ling smiled and replied, "Yes, it is quite troublesome. The Mind Empire experimented on me, trying to completely control or even transform me, but the experiment went wrong and my mind was broken. He took control and escaped. After being hunted for several days, he accidentally bumped into General Lei Jun's base today and is now migrating with the general. To put it lightly, you must have suffered a lot during these days, right? I can only imagine how anxious the Soul Empire was when they suddenly lost such a top combat power like you. In these few days of pursuit, they must have not having a good time. I feel a little distressed when I think about it. It was our fault at the beginning that we asked you to do such a dangerous spy mission, ugh. This topic seemed to go off the rails as he talked about it. General Li Wiki even started to blame himself, which made Wang Ling dumbfounded for a while. General, I'm back now, and it's a blessing in disguise. I have learned a stronger skills, why are you still blaming yourself for those now? Ha ha ha, yes, it will be good to come back, it will be good to come back. On the other end of the radio, General Li Wiki even choked up slightly when he said this. Wang Ling didn't answer anything, but listening to their voices, he felt warm in his heart. After all, he is still his old comrade in arms and old commander, and he always pretends to be himself in his heart. Not only them, but even Lieutenant General Lei Jun's base also took special care of Wang Ling, protecting and caring for him everywhere. This kind of warm feeling could not be experienced in the Seoul Empire. After the excitement subsided for a while, General Li Wiki said again, Wang Ling, we are currently stationed and resting in the Biwen Mountain War Zone. I will send you the coordinates later. You should come back as soon as possible. If Sun Dehu and Chen Tong are allowed to, when the little bastards know you are back, they will be so happy that they go crazy. Of course Wang Ling also wanted to go back, but at this time, he shook his head and refused. General, I'm afraid I won't be able to go back in the next 2 days. How? I still have something to do, and I have to finish it. You mean? That's right. Do you know where he is? I don't know, but someone does. Don't be impulsive. Once you find out the location, let me know and I will go and help you. No need, General. I have to handle this matter according to my own ideas. There may be no way to fix it, but I can handle it. Are you sure? Okay, then I won't interfere, but you have to remember that there are coalition forces behind you to support you, so don't embarrass yourself too much. I got it, General. By the way, Sun Dehu and the others, don't tell them about my return yet. I'll give them a surprise myself then. Okay, I'm looking forward to that scene, ha ha ha. With a burst of hearty laughter, the radio finally cut off. What Wang Ling wanted to do, he never said clearly, but General Li Wiki had already guessed something. While they were communicating, Lieutenant General Lei Jun had also finished reporting. On the radio, PoortoRich couldn't wait any longer and directly ordered Lieutenant General Lei Jun to call Wang Ling. Well, Wang Ling, you still know how to come back, Wang Ling was scolded for his injustice. With a smile, Wang Lingke replied, Coach, don't I want to come back? When the key was controlled, I couldn't help myself. If their Seoul Empire hadn't committed suicide, experimented on me, and broken my teeth, I might be here now. You can't even come back. Humph, this Mind Empire is so brave that it dares to control anyone. By the way, how did you escape? They used you for experiments. The location should be quite hidden and heavily deployed, right? Coach, it would take too much time to explain this in detail. I will explain it clearly in person after we meet. I still have things to do now. What's the matter? One thing that must be done. Okay, after you're done, you can go back to Li Wiki to meet his old comrades, and then come to the headquarters together. Yes, coach. The phone call with the coach was much simpler, and everything was pushed to the meeting after the meeting. As for now, after the radio interruption, Wang Ling did not sit idle. Instead, he found Agent Tanya's radio and started communicating. Tanya, I haven't seen you for a few months. Do you miss me? Huh? This voice Wang Ling. It's not just the Allied forces who miss Wang Ling, there are also such a number of people in the Allied forces, such as Agent Tanya, who recognized his identity just after hearing a few words from Wang Ling on the radio. Before Wang Ling could confirm, she hurriedly asked, You can contact me by radio. Have you escaped? How did you get out? Where are you now? Haha, let me tell you, how can the empire of the mind keep controlling you? If I stick to you, you will run away sooner or later. When Wang Ling was controlled, Agent Tanya was so anxious that she even impulsively drew a gun and pointed it at the commander of her own army, which shows how much she values Wang Ling. During the period when Wang Ling was controlled, Agent Tanya seemed to have changed. Compared to before, she was much silent and would often be alone in a daze. What was she thinking? Sometimes she didn't even know it, but what she thought about the most in her mind was Wang Ling. Now that Wang Ling was finally out of trouble and took the initiative to send her a radio message, Agent Tanya was as excited as General Li Wiki and the others. However, when contacting Agent Tanya, Wang Ling was very indifferent. He just smiled coldly and explained casually, "The Empire of Mind conducted an experiment on me, but the experiment failed, so I took the opportunity and ran away. Let's not talk about this for now. Tanya, do you know where that old bastard Reagan is?" "Reagan? Wang Ling, why are you looking for him at this time? What else can you do?" "Talk to him about old times," Wang Ling replied coldly. It turned out that Wang Ling would rather postpone the meeting with his old comrades and senior officers, but what he wanted to accomplish was to go find Reagan. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 869. Wang Ling already holds a grudge, and he holds it to the point of death. When the Mind Empire designed Wang Ling, it was certainly frustrating to him, but after all, it was a hostile force, and it was understandable that it was designed. Even if it really fell, it could only be blamed on his bad luck. However, natural disasters are mixed with man-made disasters. Under the original plan of the Mind Empire, Wang Ling had successfully escaped, but that old bastard Reagan did not hesitate to use the Allied superweapon chrono-teleportation to send Wang Ling back to the encirclement of Yuri's troops. Try to kill him. It can be said that the reason why the Mind Empire was able to control Wang Ling and make him lost for several months was that Reagan was a complete promoter behind the scenes. Although Wang Ling was a blessing in disguise, he strengthened his mental power in the Mind Empire, gained the ability to shock waves and mind control, and even injected high-level enhancers to mutate into a powerful wild beast king. However, this gain was far from suppressing the anger in Wang Ling's heart. Hatred. Previously, it was fine to stay in the Soul Empire and not see Reagan, but now, since he has returned, it is time to settle this account. Reminiscing about the past. It's not just about reminiscing about the past. Wang Ling, don't be impulsive. Although Reagan is a bastard, you are a member of the Allied forces after all. You can't touch him directly, otherwise the Allies will definitely make things difficult for you. Tanya the agent heard what Wang Ling meant and was a little scared for a moment. But Wang Ling sneered at this kind of advice. Is it embarrassing? It's funny. It's like if I don't move him, the Allies won't embarrass me. Why am I controlled by the Mind Empire? The two armies are uniting. I don't want to cause trouble or target the Allies. But I'm being set up and bullied to the top of my head, and I'm still asked to endure it. Is it possible? Wang Ling sneered repeatedly, saying he would rather postpone meeting his old comrades than go reminisce with Reagan, which shows how strong the hatred in his heart is now. However, his question really embarrassed Agent Tanya. Wang Ling, calm down. It's true that Reagan was an asshole and let the Allies suffer in this matter, but your approach is too extreme. Give me some time, let me handle this matter, and I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. No need, I've been waiting for too long in the Soul Empire, and now I have no patience. Tell me where Reagan is, and I will handle it myself. Wang Ling. Tanya. Agent Tanya felt very embarrassed, but Wang Ling further stimulated, although I have always hated you because of the instructor's grudge, but now in the Allied forces, you are the only person I can contact and trust. Now, don't let me down, don't let me do something more extreme. Agent Tanya was silent, and Wang Ling didn't press for anything. He had already said what needed to be said. In this way, after being silent for a period of time, Agent Tanya was finally willing to let go. The coalition forces threatened the Allies in a nearly forced way. Reagan has been temporarily removed from the position of commander, and is now assigned to the rear base of the Holy City War Zone. Take the position of commander in the newly established barracks. Holy City War Zone? Okay, that's where the alliance between the two armies begins. Let's resolve all the conflicts. Wang Ling, can you? Agent Tanya also wanted to tell Wang Ling to be more sensible, but after asking about the specific location, Wang Ling didn't listen to her and cut off the radio. Hello? Hello? Wang Ling. It was like being hung up on suddenly. After being treated like this, Agent Tanya was like a little daughter-in-law who had been wronged. She gritted her teeth and stamped her feet. The two deputies stared at the girl's arrogant look. My eyes were wide open and I couldn't believe it. How could a tigress be so delicate? Wang Ling. He's back. But Agent Tanya was talking to herself as if no one else was watching. When she heard the news about Wang Ling's return, she felt an inexplicable excitement in her heart. However, this excitement soon turned into worry, because what Wang Ling will do next is absolutely extreme. As a hero of the Allied forces, Agent Tanya is now worried about Wang Ling's safety, but also does not want the Allied forces to lose face. Several emotions are intertwined, and they are constantly being cut and confused. But in the end, she gritted her teeth and contacted General Bob. General, Wang Ling is back and wants to take revenge on Reagan. Commander of the barracks? He dared to trap and kill me in a joint state. It is quite ironic that Reagan could be so supportive of such a thing. As for Wang Ling, after the radio was cut off, he was still sneering, with murderous intent permeating his body. Even Lieutenant General Lei Jun was trembling. Wang Ling, you don't really want to go find Reagan like this, do you? Wang Ling barely suppressed his anger and nodded slightly. That's right, I found out the location, so of course I have to go there. But you just went like this, it's too dangerous. Lieutenant General Lei Jun was also worried. Don't look at the alliance between our two armies, but if you insist on taking revenge, the Allies will not let you mess around. Agent Tanya will definitely, if this matter is announced, a large number of Allied troops will threaten you, which is very dangerous. Wang Ling crossed his arms and said with a smile, is it dangerous? It doesn't matter. Thanks to him, I'm used to it now. Hey, don't be too impulsive. I will go with you then. As the commander of the coalition forces, they will definitely have some scruples and treat it as a way to suppress the situation for you, Lieutenant General Lei Jun suggested quickly. But Wang Ling refused directly. No, General, I can handle this matter. With Wang Ling's stubbornness, after making up his mind, even 10 planes could not pull him back. Lieutenant General Lei Jun could not change his mind at all. His persuasion was fruitless, so he could only agree with it. Of course, revenge and all that is a thing of the past. The current task is to follow and escort General Lei Jun's base to a safe place. After all, I don't know if the roundup of the Seoul Empire will continue. Wang Ling lured them here, so he will naturally be responsible for the security of General Lei Jun's base. All the infantry traveled on anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, and the base migration speed was much faster. The whole army took care of the speed of the base vehicles and apocalypse tanks. It lasted for most of a day and arrived at a remote canyon area, far away from the target hyping theater. It's only 1 day away. At this time, it was getting late, and the troops did not rush all night, so they simply rested here. Wang Ling was not in a hurry. That night, he got the long-lost vodka from the base, pulled over No. 099, had a drink, and talked about past events. It was late at night before he knew it. Being tracked and rounded up a few days ago, Wang Ling's routine was somewhat disrupted, and it has not been corrected yet. Tonight, Wang Ling did not go to make special adjustments. He rested for a day in the real world. After returning to the red alert world, he did not rest again. Instead, he borrowed an anti-aircraft crawler vehicle from Lieutenant General Lei Jun and rushed to the Holy City. War Zone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 870. As Lieutenant General Lei Jun said, Agent Tanya had already reported to General Bob the news that Wang Ling had returned and even wanted to take revenge on Reagan when they moved. Upon learning that Wang Ling had returned to the Allied forces, the Allied forces were shaken up and down, with mixed feelings of joy and sorrow. I'm happy because of Wang Ling's fighting ability. Previously, Wang Ling was controlled by the Mind Empire. As the enemy's fighting force, Wang Ling specifically targeted the Allies to attack. In the past few months, many bases had been poisoned. Now, Wang Ling is out of control and has returned to the coalition. With the current joint state of the two armies, they will no longer face a direct threat from Wang Ling on the battlefield. The reason for worry is also because of Wang Ling's fighting ability. What Wang Ling represents is not only the identity of the hero of the coalition forces, but also the symbol of the strongest firepower of the coalition forces. The combat effectiveness is so powerful that it is outrageous. The coalition force without Wang Ling was like a tiger with a broken claw. Although it still had combat effectiveness, it was completely different from before. But now, Wang Ling has returned. An injured tiger recovered almost instantly. Who wouldn't be surprised by its soaring fighting power? Even though they are currently in a coalition state, it is still because they have a common enemy. Once this common enemy is defeated, will the coalition and allied forces still cooperate like this? Moreover, they had previously planned a fatal situation that would almost kill Wang Ling. However, before this dead end was activated, Wang Ling disappeared, and after reappearing, he had returned to the coalition camp. The dead end was also aborted. If they were forced to push forward, the coalition forces would have to go to war with them directly. Not to mention, right now, as the strongest firepower of the Allied forces, Wang Ling now has a very strong feeling of hatred towards the Allied forces. Because of Reagan, Wang Ling was lost for several months, but the Allies hadn't done anything to Reagan yet. With Wang Ling's temperament, how could he just let it go? As expected, Wang Ling really released the signal that he was going to seek revenge. This news really shocked and angered the top leaders of the Allied forces. However, even though they were still wary of Wang Ling's combat effectiveness, General Bob and others decided not to let Wang Ling act recklessly after some discussions. For this reason, the Allied forces quickly deployed heavy troops. Even General Bob and several generals and lieutenant generals personally took helicopters and rushed to the barracks in the Holy City Theater at the first time, trying to forcibly stop them. Wang Ling. Indeed, this matter was the fault of the Allies, but even as a victim, Wang Ling could not interfere in the affairs of the Allies. Although Reagan made a big mistake, he was still a senior member of the Allied forces. If Wang Ling was killed, wouldn't it be a slap in the face of the entire Allied forces? Of course, the senior Allied forces also had some small thoughts on this matter. Wang Ling is too hot-tempered, and it may be difficult to dissuade him from intercepting him. If Wang Ling wants to kill Reagan with a strong attitude, then the Allies will kill Wang Ling on the grounds of rebellion. It is also a legitimate defense and a rightful decision. It should be true that whenever the coalition forces want to be reasonable, they cannot say anything wrong. For this reason, the Allies' deployment in the Holy City barracks was almost carried out with the purpose of killing Wang Ling. It would be the best to take the opportunity to kill this huge threat. Buzz. When the Holy City Barracks was in full swing deploying the killing tactic, Wang Ling also got on the anti-aircraft tracked vehicle heading to the Holy City war zone. As the source of this turmoil, it triggered a riot among the Allied forces, but Wang Ling acted like an old god was there. He looked like he was sitting in an anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, closing his eyes and relaxing. Now that Wang Ling's physical fitness, coupled with the huge form of the Beast King, his running speed is really not slow, it is even a few points faster than the laser UFO of the Mind Empire. But no matter how fast it is, it can't be faster than ultra-high mobility armored units such as anti-aircraft tracked vehicles. Moreover, with this means of transportation, why would Wang Ling run by himself? It's worth every minute you can relax. The speed of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle did not disappoint Wang Ling. The location of General Lei Jun's base was far away from the Holy City war zone. Wang Ling set off in the middle of the night on the crawler vehicle and ran all night. At almost noon the next day, he had already broken through. Entered the Holy City war zone. After a long time, Wang Ling returned to this war zone where he had fought. He felt nostalgic in his heart and kept observing the war zone in the tracked vehicle. After all, the battle has ended and was successfully settled. The Holy City war zone is generally very peaceful. There are even some civilians living in the city, and there is a bit of vitality in the comings and goings. In the square of the Holy City Castle, there are guard troops left by the two major forces, each occupying a position and not interacting with each other, but they are also jealous of each other during the alliance. As for Wang Ling's destination, the Allied barracks, it is located deeper in the Oriental Castle Square, and a large area of electronic map has been opened up. The world of Red Alert is not exactly the same as the game. The biggest difference is probably the barracks. In the game, the barracks occupy a very small area. If you stay in the base, you can recruit unlimited infantry as long as you have funds. But in the world of Red Alert, it is much more troublesome. All infantrymen need to be recruited and systematically trained in the barracks. Only after meeting the standards will they be transported to the battlefield. There are many training items and a large number of infantrymen trained at one time. As a result, each barracks occupies a very large area, even compared to large combat bases. This is the case with the Allied barracks in the Holy City war zone. A large military camp. Tall and thick walls are built around this barracks. There is an entrance and exit gate to the barracks on the front, and there are also small entrances and exits around it. The construction in the barracks is not much different from the barracks where Wang Ling first entered the world of Red Police. The various functional houses and halls, the continuous infantry tents, and the various squares and fields used for training all look very familiar. The biggest difference is probably the defensive strength here. Although the defense of ordinary barracks is tight, after all, the defense force behind the battle line is far inferior to that of the combat base. However, here, there are all kinds of infantry everywhere, such as Allied soldiers, SEALs, and snipers. Rocket pilots, heavily armored soldiers, etc., as well as various types of tanks, the number of which is also very large, among which the Prism tanks and Phantom tanks are the main ones. The most noteworthy thing is that none of these arms are new soldiers. On the contrary, most of them are elites. They are arranged according to their respective arms, as if they are forming some kind of encirclement formation. Each entrance and exit even has enough buildings. There are 6 light prism towers and 4 machine gun bunkers. There are also such defensive buildings everywhere inside the barracks. The recruits who really need training are all placed in a corner with nothing to do. This entire battle formation looks like it is facing a powerful enemy. Who are they defending? Of course it was Wang Ling. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 871. Tisk, tisk. For me to put up such a huge formation just for myself, the Allies really think highly of me. After seeing the deployment in the Allied barracks in the electronic video, Wang Ling smiled very coldly, but, do you really think that this kind of formation can stop me? You are naive. Buzz. The anti-aircraft crawler vehicle is still running at full power. This kind of armored force doesn't care about you. Since Wang Ling's order has not changed, the crawler vehicle will not stop and maintain this ultra-high speed. Soon he walked through the entire holy city, passed through the eastern castle, and approached the Allied barracks. During this process, the Allied forces naturally observed Wang Ling's movements from the electronic map. The troops originally stationed in the barracks immediately became a little uneasy. After a brief commotion, under the command of their respective commanders, they arrange quickly and maintain a high degree of vigilance. As for Wang Ling, he did approach the barracks, but he did not go to the main entrance or the side entrance. Instead, he stopped the tracked vehicle under a section of wall and walked out. Whether in the game or in the red alert world, there is this rule that infantry cannot cross the wall. Although the wall seems to be only that high when playing the game, and anyone with good skills can climb it in person, in fact it is not the case. The walls in the red alert world are very tall and thick, and there are even electric fences surrounding them. The average infantryman cannot cross them at all, and can only pass through the main entrance or the side entrance. However, Wang Ling decided not to take the ordinary path, and he even built this wall. Ordinary infantry cannot destroy the wall, but the orcs can. With their powerful physical attack power, the orcs can even forcibly dismantle the wall. As for Wang Ling, as the king of wild beasts, that was no longer a problem. After getting off the tracked vehicle, Wang Ling twisted his neck and stretched his muscles. He looked at the wall in front of him and sneered. Part of his body transformed into the form of a wild beast king. He punched it with a boom punch, leaving a mark on the wall. There was a trace of cracks as dense as a spider web. Boom. After another punch, the crack marks became denser and the cracks became deeper. Boom. Blah blah blah. With another punch, the whole wall was shattered by him. The rubble flew away and scattered everywhere. The crashing sound even made the onlookers in the barracks pale in fright. Who is this damn person? He can actually break down the wall. Buzz. 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 Here we come, be alert and prepare to meet the enemy. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Buzz buzz. The destruction of the wall, to be honest, greatly exceeded the Allied forces' expectations. They didn't know about the Wild Beast King, so they had built major defensive buildings at various entrances and exits. However, Wang Ling took a different approach and actually broke the wall and broke in. The Allied guards here were not like those at the entrance. Much weaker. For this reason, the entire barracks rang with urgent sirens. The originally arranged infantry lineup quickly changed and surrounded Wang Ling. There were even a large number of tanks following around. Wang Ling, what do you mean? After the infantry team was arranged, an Allied soldier with the rank of lieutenant colonel questioned Wang Ling. Wang Ling casually glanced at the formation, but smiled playfully. What do I mean? I'm just looking for an old acquaintance to catch up on old times. What do you think about this formation? Let's disperse, let's all disperse. A group of infantrymen were trapped. They had imagined many conflict scenarios, but Wang Ling's attitude made them at a loss. Bah, that's nice to say. No one knows your purpose. It's impossible to act recklessly in our Allied camp. However, a heavily armed soldier spoke immediately and without mercy, directly revealed Wang Ling's purpose. Wang Ling's body returned to normal after destroying the wall. At this time, he scratched his head with a look of embarrassment. So you know, this gives me a headache. A group of Allied infantry was surrounded again, and Wang Ling seemed to be doing Tai Chi. However, after this period of pretending to be stupid, Wang Ling had enough fun, and his playful attitude finally subsided. With a slight chill in his eyes, now that you know it, you still dare to stop it, You are very courageous. Come on, I won't embarrass you, just bring Reagan over to me, and I'll just reminisce about old times and leave. You are so presumptuous, the lieutenant colonel who had spoken before shouted again, how can you see General Reagan whenever you want? Wang Ling was very happy, from your tone, it sounds like you are pretty cool. But who is Reagan, the one who deserves to be so cherished by you? Arrogant. What a loud tone. Even though you are a hero of the coalition, you are a senior colonel. How can you say that to a first-generation lieutenant general? A group of Allied infantrymen became anxious. They are both heroic units. If Agent Tanya said this about Reagan, this group of people would not dare to say anything. But who said Wang Ling was from the coalition? However, at this point in the confrontation, Wang Ling has gradually lost his patience, and his expression has become more serious. Yes, your power is too low, and I can't afford to talk nonsense to you. Since you refuse to call Reagan, then I will go find him myself. If you dare to stop me, then try to stop me. After saying that, Wang Ling stepped forward and walked towards the Allied encirclement. Don't come here. This is the territory of our allies. You are not allowed to run wild here. Go back. Go back. A group of Allied infantrymen were startled and shouted bravely. However, Wang Ling didn't listen. Instead of stopping, he walked toward the encirclement at a faster speed. His stern expression actually sent shivers down the spines of a group of Allied infantrymen. Da-da-da. The extremely rhythmic footsteps were not slow at all, as if no force could stop them. A group of infantrymen and a group of tanks formed a very powerful encirclement. However, facing Wang Ling, no one or tank dared to fire for a while. They watched Wang Ling approach, but in the end they passively gave way. A road. We can't blame them for being so cowardly. After all, the shadow of the famous tree and the powerful impression of Wang Ling are deeply rooted in the minds of these soldiers. Under the joint state of the two armies, they dare not open fire without a special death order. What's more, Wang Ling was here to seek revenge. Before he could take any further excessive action, he took the lead in firing, but he was wrong and aroused the anger of the entire coalition. Under all kinds of concerns, the group of Allied guards acted like decorations and allowed Wang Ling to pass through the encirclement. However, they did not dare to just let Wang Ling in. All the surrounding infantry and tanks followed Wang Ling, and some tanks were sandwiched on both sides of Wang Ling, always on guard. However, Wang Ling didn't care. He glanced around and found the commander's office. With a focused look, he walked directly in that direction. Wang Ling, what do you think this is? You are so unscrupulous. However, before he had gone far, General Bob walked out from behind a row of houses, followed by several generals, lieutenant generals, and even Agent Tanya. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 872. To be honest, Wang Ling escaped from difficulties and returned to the coalition forces, and came here to seek revenge, which somewhat embarrassed General Bob. Although he had made up his mind that if Wang Ling really killed Reagan forcefully, he would issue an order to trap and kill Wang Ling, but that was the last resort after all, and it felt quite risky because he didn't know what the coalition forces would do. Therefore, General Bob did not want to take this risk from the bottom of his heart. After all, if Wang Ling succeeded, the Allies would not look good. However, the direction of development of things is often beyond their control. Wang Ling's stubborn temper did not care at all about being surrounded and warned. He walked in the Allied barracks under the siege and was so unscrupulous that General Bob couldn't stand it anymore. Showing up prevented. Seeing the lineup of their group, Wang Ling rarely gave him some face and stopped in his tracks. However, the ridicule and coldness on his face were not concealed at all. Tisk, tisk, how can I, Wang Ling, be so virtuous and capable? Ah, you actually attracted the commander of the Allied forces. You really went to great lengths to deal with me. How could General Bob not hear the sarcasm in his words? However, he couldn't refute, he could only warn or even threaten. Wang Ling, have you made enough trouble? Originally, we were supposed to congratulate you for getting out of trouble, but you came to stir up trouble. What does this mean? Don't you take our allies into consideration? With the two armies united, your provocative method cannot be justified. Ha ha ha. However, Wang Ling didn't listen to him at all. He smiled arrogantly and asked instead, "Old General, don't you feel your face hurt when you say this? Why was I controlled in the first place? Who gave me the gift? Isn't it a provocation for your allies to do such a thing? Now that I narrowly escaped death and got out of trouble, I came here specifically to ask for an explanation, but it became a provocation. Don't you think it's a double standard?" General Bob gritted his teeth, and his temper rose up to the top of his head. He was unable to respond to Wang Ling for a while. Behind him, General William spoke, "Wang Ling, calm down. This matter is indeed our fault. Reagan did something he shouldn't have done. I promise you, we will give you a solution for this matter, a satisfactory statement." As a high-ranking figure in the Allied forces, General Williams' attitude towards the Allied forces was relatively friendly. There was no one else but him who wanted to appease Wang Ling when he came to provoke him. However, Wang Ling did not give him this face, humph, a satisfactory explanation? If I could give it, I would have given it long ago. Why have you delayed it until now? If you can give me a little explanation, I will not stand here. They framed me to death during the alliance, and now a few months have passed. Not only is old dog Reagan fine, he has also been given the plum job of a military camp commander. Why, it was predicted from the beginning that I would not be able to come back. Can we just let it go? Haha, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Wang Ling, am still back. It was true that his words were like a knife, and every word was from the heart. Wang Ling came here today and had no good intentions. His sharp words choked everyone and made them unable to answer. No matter if you are a 4-star general or a 5-star general, you will not be given any face. General Williams' face also turned ugly, but he still did not give up the idea of reconciliation and was still trying to persuade him. "Wang Ling, you just came back and you don't know the situation. We have been arguing internally for a long time about Reagan's punishment." "Haha, we have been arguing for a long time? You gave him a job as a barracks commander? The top leader of the barracks, and you are free from the dangers of the front line. His feelings have caused me to be controlled, but he has made a meritorious service." Before General William could finish speaking, Wang Ling was already infuriated and interrupted and started taunting him midway. "That is because. That's enough. It's ridiculous." General William also tried to confuse the audience and appease Wang Ling, but now, even General Bob lost his patience and got angry. Instead of accommodating Wang Ling, he directly reprimanded, "Wang Ling, do you know who you are? But it's just a colonel, no matter how big or small. This is the territory of our Allied forces. If you want to show off your power here, don't look at how much you weigh. Even if Reagan is wrong, he is still a member of our Allied forces. Your Allied forces are here. Are you causing trouble here completely regardless of the major issues of the alliance? If there is really trouble, do you think you can get out? Kaka kaka." After all, the injustice was serious, and Wang Ling was too strong. His attempts to comfort him had no effect, and instead brought humiliation to himself. General Bob's patience was exhausted and he simply used force to deter him. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding infantry who received his signal quickly showed their guns and pointed them at Wang Ling. All kinds of tanks also rushed their muzzles towards Wang Ling. There was a lot to say. It means not to fire directly. Wang Ling casually glanced at these troops, but did not see the slightest panic. Instead, he smiled coldly, I rushed out of the siege of Yuri's troops. Do you think you can really keep me with these troops? Haha, naive. Bob General, I just put my words here today. If I really take action, no matter whether I can leave here or not, you and your group of generals will all die. If you don't believe it, you can give it a try. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Ling released a strong mental pressure, spreading as much as possible at the expense of reducing the intensity, and forcefully enveloped all corners of the entire barracks. The infantry were all severely disturbed in an instant. A group of elite soldiers had chills running down their spines, their arms and legs trembled, and they felt a strong sense of uneasiness in their hearts. The veterans were trembling all over and their faces turned pale. As for the recruits who were hiding in the corner and watching the battle, the impact was the most obvious, and everyone was strongly affected. Frightened, with panic and horror on their faces, some screamed, some trembled and squatted down to hold their heads, some even had empty eyes, and they were completely lost and as if they had collapsed. Even the generals felt the pressure of this mental power, their heartbeats accelerated uncontrollably, and cold sweat dripped from their temples. Wang Ling's mental power was originally unable to affect the soldiers in the Red Alert world, but after a long period of special training, his mental power has undergone almost earth-shaking changes. With this mental pressure, all the infantry had lost nearly half or more of their combat effectiveness before the battle even started. This is really not good news for General Bob and even other generals. Wang Ling. But just when the scene was full of gunpowder and many infantrymen were worried, Agent Tanya suddenly rushed out. Seeing this old acquaintance, Wang Ling restrained himself slightly, withdrew his mental pressure, and asked, "Why, you didn't tell the Allies about my purpose, and now you want to stop me in person?" Agent Tanya's face was burning hot, but she couldn't care less about it. "Wang Ling, listen to my advice and leave here. You couldn't do anything in the Seoul Empire before, but now that you're back, we will definitely take care of it. Deal with Reagan. Can you calm down and stop being so impulsive? If there is a real conflict, you won't be able to get out of this barracks." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 873. Agent Tanya's current mood and stance are quite complicated. She didn't want anything to happen to Wang Ling, but as a hero of the Allied forces, she couldn't let Wang Ling do whatever he wanted. The best way at the moment was to appease Wang Ling and let him retreat from the barracks. However, with Wang Ling's stubbornness, how could he listen to her? Tanya, staring at Agent Tanya, Wang Ling's tone was quite cold. "You and I obviously have a layer of hatred, but when I was controlled, you also tried to save me like crazy, so I always remember your kindness. I don't want to embarrass you during the alliance. However, don't make it difficult for me. Reagan must die today. You bring him out. After solving the problem, I will leave immediately. No more injuries will be caused. One person." After a pause, Wang Ling's face gradually darkened, and he threatened, "But if the Allies refuse to hand over Reagan and execute him, then today's matter will never end. If there is a conflict, I can't guarantee the number of casualties." It seemed that Wang Ling had underestimated Wang Ling's determination to kill Reagan. Regarding Wang Ling's statement, even Agent Tanya was at a loss this time. Alone, facing heavy siege by the Allied forces, and even Allied commanders and Allied heroes blocking his way, Wang Ling was still extremely strong. However, despite being strong, Wang Ling also maintained his rationality. After all, the alliance between the two armies was very difficult to form and could not be easily destroyed. Therefore, no matter how provocative he was, except for Reagan, he could not fire the first shot to prevent the coalition from making things difficult. But it would be different if the Allies opened fire first. Even if Wang Ling killed everyone here, he would not have any psychological burden. The first one to open fire is always at fault. Of course, the Allied forces also knew this and were also concerned about it. Although they really wanted to kill Wang Ling, they really couldn't open fire now. For this reason, General Bob's face was extremely ugly. He suppressed the anger in his heart and finally warned, "Wang Ling, very good. If you dare to say harsh words in front of me, you are the first. Regarding Reagan's matter, you will not be allowed to interfere in the internal affairs of the Allied forces. Today, if you take another step forward, believe it or not, I will immediately order you to be killed on the grounds of provocation. If you're not afraid of death, you can try it." Wang Ling sneered and took a step forward in a deliberately provocative manner. Click. This move really made General Bob feel very embarrassed. Fortunately, Agent Tanya rescued the enemy in time and actually took out his 2 guns and pointed them at Wang Ling. He gasped and warned, "That's enough, Wang Ling, don't do it, go any further. I don't want to fight with you." When Wang Ling saw her posture, he really stopped, but the coldness on his face still did not slow down. Instead, he smiled playfully and said, "Okay, I will give you this face. In this case, then send 2 people, go get Reagan out." Buzzing. As soon as he finished speaking, before anyone else understood what Wang Ling meant, he suddenly projected 2 mental power connections, controlling a lieutenant general and a lieutenant colonel infantry, and through the mental power connection, give them the order to bring Reagan out. In fact, Wang Ling wanted to control General Bob and let him, the commander, do things directly. But after all, he was the commander of the Allied forces. General Bob had also undergone special training, and his mental resistance was so strong that he could not be controlled by the mind. Influence. Not only him, but also the mental resistance of the several generals beside him was not weak. In the end, only one of them slipped through the net and was successfully controlled by him. After receiving the order, the lieutenant general and lieutenant colonel immediately turned around and walked towards the duty room with very calm expressions. After knowing that Wang Ling came to seek revenge, Reagan didn't even stay in the office, but hid in the duty room. If Wang Ling hadn't controlled the 2 of them, it would have taken a while just to find him. Stop. However, General Bob suddenly roared and tried to stop the 2 of them. However, being controlled by their minds, these 2 people only listened to Wang Ling. They didn't care about General Bob's words and still left the scene on their own. "I've turned against you. General Bob." General Bob was almost red-eyed. Just when he was about to do something, Wang Ling suddenly spoke and stopped him. "I still said what I said. I don't want to escalate the situation, but Reagan must die today. I advise you, don't do it again. Try to stop me, otherwise, the consequences will be serious." He had been threatened by Wang Ling more than once today. General Bob had even gotten used to it. He rolled his eyes and did not try to stop the lieutenant general and lieutenant colonel anymore. Instead, he looked at Wang Ling with a fearful expression. "If I'm not mistaken, what you used just now should be the ability of the Mind Empire, right?" Yes, the mind control ability of the psychic troops. Wang Ling also admitted it. But General Bob seemed to have grasped his handle. "Humph, Wang Ling, as a hero of the coalition, you know the unique skills of the Mind Empire. Now should I express your true identity and camp position, do you doubt it?" To be honest, all the officers and soldiers watching around were shocked by this mind control. Many of them even opened their mouths and looked stunned. Even Agent Tanya's chest was rising and falling. General Bob had the deepest feelings and the most thoughts. Not only was Wang Ling extremely powerful in combat, he even mastered these difficult skills after returning from the Mind Empire, making him a much greater threat to the Allies. The reason why he didn't intercept the lieutenant general again was that, to put it bluntly, he had already had a wrong idea at this time. Wang Ling's power has already made him feel like a thorn in his back. At first, he thought about the possibility of reconciliation, but now, he hopes that Wang Ling will actually kill Reagan, so that he can take this opportunity to solve this serious problem. Trading Reagan for Wang Ling is a worthwhile trade. Reagan, please sacrifice yourself for the great cause of the Allied forces, General Bob muttered silently in his heart. Wang Ling clicked his ears and said sarcastically, "Tusk, Tusk, this is such a shame. Why was I involved in the Empire of the Soul, and who did I learn these skills from? There are no spies for you in the Empire of the Soul. Arms, can't you tell the color of my camp from the electronic map? Let go, Wang Ling is right there, don't pull me over, that bastard will really kill me." After being controlled, the work efficiency was quite high. While Wang Ling and General Bob were confronting each other, the Lieutenant General and Lieutenant Colonel had already worked together to escort Reagan directly from the duty room where he was hiding. When Wang Ling finally saw Reagan, he smiled very coldly. General Bob also showed a vague smile, but his smile was very cruel and sinister. "Shishi. General Bob, haven't you seen him for a while?" Seeing that the situation was developing in an uncontrollable direction, a burst of noise suddenly came from everyone's radios. Then, PoortoRich actually turned on the radio frequency band of everyone in the barracks and shouted. Wang Ling could also hear the radio. Out of respect for PoortoRich, Wang Ling did not take action immediately. But General Bob suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart, but he still had to bite the bullet and reprimanded, "PoortoRich, look what your coalition soldiers have done, they came to our territory to cause trouble. Got it? Haha, General Bob doesn't need to beat you up. I think you hope that Wang Ling will kill Reagan and then take the opportunity to surround and kill Wang Ling, right?" PoortoRich didn't accept that trick and even said polite words. "No need, it directly defeats General Bob's purpose." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 874. PoortoRich, isn't this a bit of a joke? With the two armies united, how could I target Wang Ling like this? And it's even more of a joke to pay for the life of my allied general. When PoortoRich released all the radios and pointed out his purpose, to be honest, General Bob's heart was unavoidable. For the senior allied forces, it was completely unsurprising that General Bob had such an idea. It was even a semi-open secret, but other officers and soldiers did not know it. If PoortoRich did this, he would expose his evil thoughts at once. What should other officers and soldiers think? However, General Bob himself would not admit it. He would smile forcefully and deny it. However, this sentence could only fool ordinary officers and soldiers. Not to mention PoortoRich, even Reagan didn't believe it and shouted almost hysterically, "No. It can't be like this. General Bob, I designed Wang Ling, that is entirely for the great cause of our allies, even if it fails, you can't do this to me, you can't sacrifice me to eradicate Wang Ling." At this time, Reagan was really panicked and even had a bit of a mental breakdown. Indeed, it is human nature to fear death, and Reagan was no exception. Due to his status as a soldier, if he died in battle, he would have no regrets. However, outside the battlefield, being killed by Wang Ling was already difficult to accept. Now, even his own commander he planned to sacrifice him. This cruelty was absolutely unacceptable to Reagan. But Wang Ling didn't find this statement strange. The layout of the Allied forces in the barracks was a massacre. They could exchange Reagan's life for his own life. With the temperament of the Allied forces, they could really do it. However, he did not express anything or make any other moves. He just crossed his arms, sneered again and again, and waited for the development of the matter. "Ha ha ha, General Bob, I am not joking. If your army will not target Wang Ling, then why was Wang Ling controlled, and the culprit, Reagan, is still alive and well, at the coalition headquarters, all the generals are currently paying close attention to the situation in the Holy City barracks. Everyone listened to General Bob's reply and sneered. PoortoRich even pointed it out directly without mercy. However, General Bob would not admit it easily. PoortoRich, this hat is too big. The design of Wang Ling was Reagan's own initiative, not my suggestion, and it cannot represent the wishes of the Allies. As soon as these words came out, the generals in the coalition headquarters were even more contemptuous. PoortoRich was too lazy to talk nonsense at this point. He sneered and asked, the coalition was furious when they lost Wang Ling. Later, although the normal coalition was restored, we have always remembered grudges. You refused to deal with Reagan. In fact, there are already complaints within the coalition, but do you know why we have never mentioned this matter? General Bob was at a loss for words. Before he could answer, PoortoRich explained himself, because we have always believed that the Mind Empire is not worthy of controlling Wang Ling. He will come back sooner or later. This revenge should be left to Wang Ling to avenge himself. He will execute Reagan personally. Today, Reagan must die. PoortoRich, do you know what the consequences will be if you do this? Are you sure the coalition can afford it? General Bob was annoyed. He spoke this sentence very slowly, but it contained his anger was clearly evident. But things have already reached this point. How could Wang Ling or PoortoRich fall into this trap? PoortoRich immediately responded, the Allies can afford it, why can't our coalition? Moreover, this matter is your fault in the first place. Wang Ling is just a normal revenge. If Wang Ling kills Reagan, you want to embarrass him. I regard it as a provocation to the entire coalition forces. General Bob, the nuclear bomb attack is ready. If something happens to Wang Ling, everyone will be buried with him. Hiss. As soon as he finished speaking, there were gasps of air from the entire barracks, and almost all the infantrymen changed their expressions, showing fear and fear. Even the generals were shocked. As a deterrent weapon of super mass destruction, they are all too aware of the power of the coalition's super weapon nuclear bomb attack. As long as it is launched into the barracks, the entire barracks will lose at least 70% of its troops in an instant. During the previous battle for hegemony, no matter how fierce the fight was, the two armies never used super weapons. After all, the impact of this type of weapon was too far-reaching and could not be used lightly. But this time, the coalition forces even threatened a nuclear bomb attack, which shows how seriously they take this matter. That is really no joke. Allied forces, please be cruel. For this reason, General Bob was also very angry, but he had no choice but to grit his teeth and almost said a reluctant word from between his teeth. If he was hiding in the general command post on weekdays, how could General Bob be threatened by this kind of threat? But today, in order to see Wang Ling's end with his own eyes, I came to the Holy City barracks, but unexpectedly, I was caught by the coalition forces. Domineering. I like it. The only person in the audience who appreciated this approach was Wang Ling. While others were frightened, he clapped his hands and applauded. Wang Ling, do what you should do, don't worry too much. After suppressing the Allied commander, PoortoRich immediately urged Wang Ling. Yes, coach. After Wang Ling gave a decent military salute, he walked towards Reagan with a sneer on his face. At this time, General Bob had given up blocking him and had no intention of confrontation, but General William disagreed. Stop him, don't fire. PoortoRich just said he couldn't kill Wang Ling, but didn't say he couldn't stop him. Buzz. However, even if you want to stop it, you have to be able to stop it. A group of frightened infantrymen were given orders. Just as they were about to take action, Wang Ling released another mental pressure, controlling the spread and only surrounding the area. Within a few dozen meters of him, all the infantrymen who broke into this range changed their faces in an instant, turned pale, and fell to the ground tremblingly, with no fighting spirit at all. Even those elite soldiers were no exception. Humph, vulnerable. However, Wang Ling kept stopping, and the light turned green all the way, and he arrived in front of Reagan in a moment. Destroyed by the mental pressure and exposed to Wang Ling's cold gaze, Reagan was now so frightened that his face turned pale, and he was so frightened that he couldn't say a word. The two control generals and lieutenant colonels then released their hands and pushed Reagan towards Wang Ling. Wang Ling then grabbed his throat, picked him up effortlessly, and sneered again and again, "Old dog Reagan, you're done. Come and taste the sins I suffered because of you. Tisk tisk. Ah. Ah. Ah." As soon as he finished speaking, an electromagnetic current suddenly appeared in Wang Ling's hand. Under the pain of electric shock, Reagan screamed repeatedly, which made the hearts of all the infantrymen on the scene beat. Sizzling. However, this is not the end. Wang Ling's electromagnetic attack can kill infantry instantly. Where does this go? While Reagan screamed, he gradually increased the intensity of the electromagnetic current, electrocuting Reagan until his skin was torn apart and his whole body convulsed. Sizzle sizzle. Crackle 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 crackle. However, this still did not reach the limit of Wang Ling's ability. The electromagnetic attack continued to strengthen. Even under the strong current, dense electromagnetic currents appeared on Reagan's body surface, and the harsh electric explosion sound was almost covered up. Reagan's screams made people's scalp numb just watching and listening to them. Sizzle sizzle. Belch. Finally, under this high-intensity electric shock, Reagan could not hold on for too long. As soon as his body straightened up, he immediately stopped breathing.